They say the truth sets you free. What a beautiful, terrifying oversimplification. Looking back now, a year removed from the suffocating beige walls of my childhood bedroom, I know the truth doesn't just open a door. First, it burns the house down. In the dead of night, when my teenage world was comatose and the shadows stretched long and accusing across the ceiling, the truth didn't feel like freedom. It felt exactly like a cage of my own making. I sit here now, dressed in my appropriate gender, and my mind drifts back to him, that terrified 17-year-old boy perched on the edge of his mattress, staring at a mahogany nightstand as if it held a relic both sacred and entirely forbidden. On top of it rested a leather-bound Bible, the gold-gilt edges gleaming faintly in the moonlight, the spine snapped from years of white-knuckled desperation. Beneath it, hidden under a stack of outdated study workbooks, was the drawer. God doesn't make mistakes. That was the doctrine Mr. Grayson hammered into our skulls at school. Male and female, he created them. Two rigid, immutable columns of stone drawn on a whiteboard. A man was designed to be a shield, he told us. A man was hard because the world was hard. But if God didn't make mistakes, I remember thinking, then what was I? I was born XXY, Klinefelter syndrome. The doctors had fed my parents a sanitized excuse, calling it a minor hormonal thing, something not to worry about. They didn't tell them it meant I would grow into a body that acted like a biological cipher. They didn't mention the naturally slender curve to my limbs, the subtle flare of my hips, the heavy sweep of my eyelashes, or the plushness of lips that always seemed too tender for a boy. When the boys in gym class mocked my chicken legs, I would flinch outwardly, dropping my gaze to my worn sneakers. But secretly, I thanked God for them. It made pretending easier when the bedroom door was finally locked. Whenever I pulled that drawer open, the brass knob cool against my sweating palm, the guilt was immediate and violently suffocating. It sat heavy in my throat, tasting of copper and ash. I had prayed until salt water drenched my pillowcase day after day, begging the Almighty to reach into my chest and carve out that rotting desire. Fix me, please, make me right. But the urge never died. It only grew louder. I remember stripping off the rough, abrasive cotton of my t-shirt, a fabric that felt like penance, and dropping my boxers with shaking hands. The lavender panties slid up my legs like a second skin. It was a perfect, frictionless glide. With practiced, trembling care, I cupped myself, undersized, obsolete, a biological error, and gently tucked everything back between my thighs. And suddenly, the horrifying wrongness of my anatomy was smoothed flat. The pressure against my hips felt secure, feminine, almost holy. Next came the camisole, the lace grazing my collarbones, the slender ribbons settling against shoulders that never wanted to carry the weight of a man. I would sink to the carpet in front of the tiny mirror taped to my closet door, and the gray, slouched ghost of Kyle Williams would vanish. The boy who spent his days apologizing for taking up space was gone. Looking back at me was a stranger. No, not a stranger. She was the only real thing in that entire house. The silk hugged my torso as if it were spun exclusively from my flesh. I cocked my head to the side and swept a strand of my overgrown hair behind one ear. Looking back, I want to reach through time and hold her. I want to tell her that it's going to be okay. Because before the shame could completely drown me beneath the shadow of the cross above my pillow, a word slipped past my lips. Lacey. I breathed it into the dark. It tasted sweet and forbidden. Saying it out loud was a defiance and a confession all at once. Heat rose in my face. I smiled, and in the very same heartbeat, I absolutely loathed myself for the joy it brought me. Because dawn was a cruel, inevitable clock. In just a few hours, my mother's fist would bang on the door. The sun would rise, exposing everything. I would have to rip the silk from my skin, completely erase myself, shove the garments back into the dark beneath the scripture, and force my limbs into the rigid khaki twisting around my legs. I would have to pull my gray hoodie up over my head and walk the halls with my eyes glued to the scuffed linoleum, dodging the predatory gaze of boys like Jonah. I would have to lie to Morgan, the only friend noticing that I was bleeding out, telling her I'm fine, it's just a headache. Little did I know, she was already seeing right through the hoodie, getting ready to pull me into the light. I would have to bury Lacey alive for another day, suffocating in the chasm between male and female. I was so agonizingly tired of being Kyle. But looking at the beautiful, terrified girl sitting in the mirror, I was paralyzed by what it would cost to become her. It cost everything. But a year later, standing in the sunlight, I can finally say it was a price I was willing to pay. In the next episode 2, A Glimpse of Lace, the fragile sanctuary of the shadows is violently breached. Dragged to a crowded department store on a Saturday afternoon by my mother, I found myself drawn helplessly toward the perilous pastel world of the lingerie section. But when my careful camouflage failed and I was caught lingering by a rack of sheer lace boy shorts, it wasn't a stranger who discovered my secret, it was Morgan. Face to face, in the middle of the fluorescent daylight, the ultimate mask began to crack.